April 1st, 2024. For most people, it's a day filled with harmless lies, pranks, jokes, a day where nothing is meant to be taken seriously. But for 19-year-old Sade Robinson, April Fool's Day would become something else entirely. Because on that night, she went on a first date, and she never came home. What investigators would uncover in the days that followed was something far darker than anyone expected. A burned car, human remains scattered across a city, and a timeline so disturbing it would leave even seasoned detectives shaken. This is the story of what happened to Sade Robinson, and how one normal night turned into a nightmare. Before we get into what happened, it's important to understand who Sade was. Because cases like this can sometimes get reduced to headlines, to crime scenes, to evidence. But Sade Robinson was a real person. She was 19 years old, a college student in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, someone just starting to figure out her life. Friends described her as outgoing, energetic, and full of personality. The kind of person who didn't just walk into a room. She made an impression. She was working while studying, balancing responsibilities like so many people her age, trying to build something for herself. There was nothing about her life that suggested danger, nothing that hinted at what was about to happen. April 1st, 2024. Sade had plans that evening. She was going on a date. The man she was meeting was 34-year-old Maxwell Anderson. A first date is usually simple. Maybe dinner, drinks, conversation. You're trying to get to know someone. There's always a bit of uncertainty, but there's also an assumption of safety. That assumption would prove to be tragically wrong. According to investigators, the two met up and went out together. Surveillance footage later confirmed they were seen at a bar and restaurant. At first glance, everything looked normal. They talked, they laughed. Nothing appeared out of place. But what no one could see was what would happen next. Because at some point that night, Sade left with Maxwell Anderson. And that was the last time she was ever seen alive. At first, there was no immediate panic. People go on dates all the time. Sometimes they stay out late. Sometimes plans change. But as time passed, something didn't feel right. Sade wasn't answering her phone. Messages went unread. Calls went straight to voicemail. For someone described as active and communicative, this was unusual. Then hours turned into a full day, and concern turned into fear. Her family and friends knew something was wrong, so they reported her missing, and that's when everything began to escalate. When someone goes missing, investigators immediately look for patterns. Where were they last seen? Who were they with? What happened in those final hours? And in Sade's case, one detail stood out immediately. The last person known to be with her was Maxwell Anderson. But before police could fully piece together that timeline, something else was discovered. Something that changed the entire direction of the case. Sade's car had been found. But it wasn't just abandoned. It had been burned, completely destroyed by fire behind an apartment complex. And that detail told investigators something critical. This wasn't a disappearance. This was a crime. Because people don't burn cars to hide nothing. They burn them to destroy evidence. Just when the situation already seemed serious, it became something much worse. Not long after the car was discovered, authorities made another finding. Human remains, among them a severed leg. It's the kind of discovery that immediately shifts a case from missing person to homicide. For investigators, there was now no doubt. Sade Robinson had been killed. But what made this case especially disturbing was what came next. Because over the following days and weeks, more remains were found in different locations. Some near Lake Michigan, others scattered across parts of the city. This wasn't just murder, this was dismemberment. And it suggested something calculated, something deliberate. With each new discovery, investigators began reconstructing what happened that night. They turned to the most reliable witnesses in modern investigations: phones, surveillance cameras, digital footprints. Step by step, they started building a timeline. Surveillance footage confirmed Sade and Anderson together on their date. Phone data tracked movements after they left. And those movements began to raise serious questions. According to investigators, evidence suggested Sade went back to Anderson's residence. And at some point inside that location, something went terribly wrong. While exact details are known only to the person responsible, prosecutors later laid out what they believed occurred. After returning to Anderson's residence, Sade was killed. What followed was an attempt to cover it up. A brutal and calculated attempt. Her body was dismembered, then transported to multiple locations. Some parts discarded, others hidden. And finally, her car was burned. An effort to erase any trace of what had happened. But instead of destroying evidence, it created more. As investigators dug deeper, the case against Maxwell Anderson grew stronger. This wasn't based on one piece of evidence. It was a combination of many. Surveillance footage placed him with Sade. Phone data mapped movements consistent with disposing of remains. Physical evidence connected him to key locations. And the burned vehicle added another layer. Each detail on its own might raise suspicion, but together they formed a pattern that pointed in one direction. Within days of Sade's disappearance, Maxwell Anderson was taken into custody. He was charged with multiple crimes, including first-degree intentional homicide. For the community, the news was shocking. A first date, a young woman, and a crime of this magnitude. It's the kind of case that forces people to rethink something as simple as meeting someone new. The trial began in 2025, and from the start, it drew widespread attention. Prosecutors presented a detailed timeline. They used digital evidence, forensic findings, and witness testimony to reconstruct what they believed happened. They argued this was a deliberate act, a crime followed by a calculated attempt to hide it. The defense pushed back. They questioned the interpretation of evidence. They argued that the case relied heavily on circumstantial details. But as the trial progressed, the accumulation of evidence became difficult to ignore. After hearing the case, the jury deliberated. And when they returned, the verdict was clear. Guilty. On all counts. For Sade's family, it was a moment filled with emotion, not closure. Because nothing can undo what happened, but accountability. In August 2025, Maxwell Anderson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A permanent sentence. For a permanent loss, he has maintained his innocence and indicated plans to appeal. But the court's decision marked the official conclusion of the case. Cases like this don't end with a verdict. They leave a lasting impact. On families, on communities, on everyone who hears the story. Sade's family has since spoken out, advocating for awareness and safety. They've worked to keep her name alive, to make sure she's remembered not for how she died, but for who she was. There's something particularly unsettling about this case, because nothing about it seemed unusual at first. A first date, a normal evening, a situation millions of people find themselves in every day. And yet, it turned into something unthinkable. It raises difficult questions about trust, about safety, about how well we really know the people we meet. The story of Sade Robinson is not just a crime story. It's a reminder of how fragile normal life can be, how quickly things can change, and how important it is to stay aware, even in situations that feel completely ordinary. Because sometimes the most dangerous moments don't come with warning signs. The story of Sade Robinson is not just a crime story. It's a reminder of how fragile normal life can be, how quickly things can change, and how important it is to stay aware, even in situations that feel completely ordinary. Because sometimes the most dangerous moments don't come with warning signs. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you want more true crime stories told in this style, consider subscribing. And as always, stay safe. Because the scariest stories are the ones that are real.